Oh, yeah. So welcome to
Sportishness,
and we are
episode 2.
We're between weeks 9 and 10 now. So
What to do? It's episode number 2.
we'll be talking.
We'll be giving you absolutely nothing if you guess that reference.
Yes, that's true. So we'll talk about week 9 and what happened, our predictions, and also week 10, what we think is going to happen.
Yes, week 9.
Well, people can go to the website and.
Right, exactly.
We'll decide down here. Remember last week we weren't sure if it was going to be here or
maybe we can
here.
show it there.
No, this is where the applause stuff for me is.
Right.
And other interesting things. So you did mention a jersey, but you didn't ask the right question.
Yes, which jersey?
What's the number?
Yes.
So that's Jay Cutler. Now, why would I be wearing a Jay Cutler Broncos jersey?
Why would he be wearing our Jay Cutler's
I'm glad
jersey?
you asked.
Yeah,
I'm glad. I thought you were never going to ask. Well, I might want to mention the Bears, 51-20.
51-20.
Yes. That's insane.
That is. I mean, they're not exactly a high-scoring offense.
No.
It's been a good thing that they've had a pretty decent defense because, if they hadn't, I'm not sure Cutler, could overwhelm, some high-scoring opponent. But,
it was just the Titans, but still, 51-20. When you see Brian Urlacher rolling down that field for 20th years, God bless him, he's an amazing athlete, but you see him catch an interception, roll it in for a touchdown, the Bears having a great day.
Right.
So anyway, the Bears. The reality is I can't find my Manning jersey because it's lost. So, honey, could you find my jersey? It's driving me nuts. Although the Broncos have not lost a game since I lost that jersey. So if you're superstitious...
it needs to stay lost.
Right. Yes. Or somebody should buy me another jersey. And a press pass.
Right.
Yes.
And a press pass.
So I was thinking maybe this week, we spent a lot of time kind of getting up to speed last week. I was thinking maybe talk about our picks, wrap up week 9, talk about the games a little bit, and...
I hope you have those numbers handy on the picks.
I do.
How do we do?
All right, so the week 9 picks. Let's start them in the order we called them last week. We said Chargers versus the Chiefs. And you said the final score would be Chargers 21, Chiefs 14. I said the final score would be the Chargers 31, the Chiefs 13. And lo and behold, the score was 31-13. Applause. Look at all those people. They're just, look at that. That's right. That's all me back there. Oh, yes, right. But even you were close. You were only 9 points out, on the over and under completely. So, and even though the game didn't happen like I called it.
This is why I don't bet.
Yes. I said it was going to be a blowout in the first half, and then there would be, just garbage time in the second, but it wasn't.
Right.
So, but they did manage to run up the score. So that was good. At least we called the winners.
Well, actually, there was garbage time in the second. That fourth quarter was, they let down quite a bit.
Yes, true.
Kansas City did, that is. Yeah.
So, Broncos and Bengals. Technically, we're supposed to talk about the Tampa Bay Oakland game if we're going to go from the worst to the best teams, I guess. So, Tampa Bay at Oakland, we actually completely blew this one. We both called 10-13, thinking that neither team could score or run or pass. And the reality was, that was true for the entire first half. I think the halftime score was like 10-14 or something. We were like within a point. And all of a sudden, Tampa Bay realized they could run the ball, and that was it. And then it turned into a rout. It was 41-22, I think, at the end, or somewhere around there.
Yeah. The final score, 42-32.
42-32, yeah.
Yeah, that... I think the biggest part, the biggest story there is the Raiders had... Palmer actually had 39 of 61 passes. 61 pass plays. That's basically an offense with no rush.
That's true.
And, of course, they only had 22 yards of rushing. Even in the pass-centric NFL, that much pass offense is not going to ever be successful.
And the Broncos and the Bengals, which was... I said was 34-17, and you guessed around 40-21. Now, we both kind of thought this was going to be an easy game. We thought the Bengals' points would be kind of meaningless.
Right.
But the reality was that was a pretty tough-fought game until pretty close at the end. The final score on that one was 31-23. So I was 7 points off. You were 7 points off. I was 3 points off. But again, even though we got the scores pretty close in 2 of the 3 games we called, none of the games actually went the way we thought they would.
Yeah, especially the Broncos game.
Yeah. So which one you want to jump into first? We got the
Actually, you know what? Let's do the garbage time with the other
Chargers
division
and
players.
Chiefs.
Yeah, Chargers and Chiefs. No mystery there. Really, no mystery there. I mean, Kansas City is so bad this year that maybe they would be the candidate to play a game against college
Steve
football
Spurrier's
teams.
college football team.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't imagine how bad that would be. I mean, people would be permanently injured.
What?
The
For killing
kids.
Kansas City? No, I know. But one bright spot has been Jamal Charles for Kansas City.
Yeah, he did pretty good.
And unfortunately, they thought he had a concussion. He was cleared of concussion. Of course, these days, what does that really mean, being cleared of concussion? But, really, Kansas City, I think they're in danger of overusing their running back because they don't have any other part of their game. So this guy's career could be, unfortunately, shortened a great deal by being overplayed.
No, I watched the game and I was kind of scratching down some notes. And the thing about Kansas, is I realized pretty quickly, is that they had a really simple offensive scheme. If it was first down, they would almost always run.
Right.
If the yardage was short, after that, regardless of the down, they would run it. If the yardage was long, they would always pass it, and they would almost never play action the ball. So,
right.
First San Diego did come up pretty aggressive against the run because that's really all KC could do. But I would say by the second quarter, San Diego realized that the formation the formation and package that KC was putting in, and the down and distance decided to play almost without fail. And anytime it was first down or a short distance play, I was 7-8 guys in the box every play.
I think unfortunately San Diego overcomplicated it because if you look at the end of the third, the box score was 10-6. So basically, that 13-31, basically all the points that San Diego got was in the fourth quarter when apparently Kansas City thought they were going to win by 4 points, or maybe they were just getting tired. I don't know what happened. Anyway, enough of that game.
It wasn't a terribly interesting game. I mean, some of the things we did talk about happened. Phillip Rivers, the game was still close, and he threw that interception on that fade route to the corner that he should have never thrown it. It was so ironic because it was the third down on a three series of plays that was on the goal line.
Right.
And the first down, he had an opportunity to do the same thing. Actually, it was some guy crossing across the middle, and he decided to throw it away. And the announcer was all gushing about, what a mature decision that is. Phillip Rivers grown up, all that kind of stuff. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, just give it like a play or two because that one he let go, but he's not patient.
Right.
And sure enough, on the third down play, he just gave the ball away. Now, it ended up making no difference whatsoever, but it could have. I mean, that may have energized Kansas City. Actually, it didn't make a difference because the Kansas City did intercept it, so I take all that back. But it could have, you never know how the rest of the game's going to go. And that was another selfish pass by Phillip Rivers. The only thing you can say about the Kansas City game is, in my mind, the only thing I get out of it is Norv Turner gets to keep his job for another week.
Yeah.
I mean, and Kansas City, I think, is
somebody's going to lose their job this year.
It's a race right now between those two teams. I mean, I don't know if you're going to disagree with me. I think the Chiefs are the worst team in the league.
It's hard to think. I mean, frankly,
Titans and Jags and those kinds of teams right now, but they are bad.
They are bad.
So.
Well, next the improvement of the Raiders and Bucks game.
Yeah, that was surprisingly good after a while. Do you want to start on that one? Or you want me to kick it?
No, you go for it.
All right, so
because I already kind of jumped in there early.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, I mean, the game was basically the first half was nothing but penalties. Neither team's offense really performing. So what ended up happening is because of the penalties, neither team could sustain a drive because they'd always end up in 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, 3rd and 25, not because of bad plays that were run, it's because they couldn't get off the ball with, because of false starts and encroachments and holdings. I think I counted up, there were 11 penalties that I can remember from the first half alone. So nothing happened. It was an incredibly boring game. And in fact, the score at the half was almost exactly what we both had called.
Right.
Well, I think within a point of that. And then in the second half, all of a sudden, Tampa Bay comes out, and they just start doing these long runs. Now, I don't want to take anything away from Tampa Bay, but there were 3 very good runs that well schemed. well blocked. I mean, just a clinic on having linemen get to the second level to block out the linebackers, and then allowing the running back to spring free in space and having wide receivers and tight ends block out corners.
Right.
The 3 runs that he had the big gains on, the 60-plus yard plays that he ran those in on, all of those were clinic plays. But if you take those 3 plays away, just maybe he did break a few tackles. Let's say Oakland makes 3 tackles there.
Right.
The game is still ridiculously boring.
Right.
The only reason it opened up is because one team all of a sudden piled on a big lead, and the other team had to play catch up, and the game changed completely. In the first half, neither team could run. They just ran up the middle and fell on their face every time. There was nothing going on. Every second play was a penalty. The second half, it kind of opened. The third quarter was like the bomb fest. Both teams were just throwing these long bombs down these flat routes, just time after time. There's one that the ball comes down and hits the defender on the helmet, and it makes it sound like the field goal thing, like a bong. And I'm like, maybe that was just in my head. I don't know.
Right.
Regardless, and I'm like,
it was probably in his head.
It's probably in my head. I'm sure it was in his head. So Tampa Bay did win. That was really a surprising one. I think we both picked Oakland to win on that one, not by much. But I think this also pretty much puts Oakland out of the running. That was one of the give-me games they had to have to keep running with Denver. And now that I think, you can't look too far ahead, but it makes it really difficult for them to climb past both San Diego and us.
Well, strangely enough, I look at the loss, and I say, well, I actually see more positives out of the Raiders' play than I did out of San Diego's play. So, I'm still in this paradigm of thinking of the Raiders as a team on the way up and San Diego on its way down to a long, bitter rebuilding over the next several years.
I wouldn't disagree with that.
Carson Palmer, nobody's ever going to confuse Carson Palmer with, Brady or Montana or anybody like that. But you know what? He's a solid quarterback.
Sure.
He's I would say as solid as Jay Cutler, Maybe not quite Jay Cutler. I don't know.
I totally agree that Oakland can go up. I mean, one of the things that could happen consistently on the game for them, and actually ended up costing the game at the end, was Palmer was constantly throwing balls to places receivers, in his mind, were supposed to be. Now, I don't know who was wrong. I don't know if he had the wrong play, the receiver read the wrong route, whatever. But the half dozen passes just ditched out 30 yards from anybody.
Yeah.
But that's correctable. It's one of these things, like, you don't have to change personnel or coaches. You just have to get better at running.
Well, and in fact, they do need to change personnel because they need to buff up their receiving core. Well, so that's one of the reasons why I think that, Carson Palmer is enough to anchor a team at the quarterback position. If they can draft in some better folks for some of their other key positions, like better a good wide receiver or two, maybe a good tight end, then they might be able to do something a little better.
Well, I mean, you could have Jerry Rice on the field.
Yeah.
And if the quarterback's throwing to the wrong spot of the field, I don't know if they get you much. But I hear you. I think they're definitely closer to the Chargers, who I think are, like we said last week, are kind of in their swan song. One thing I wanted to talk about was kind of funny was you mentioned this last week about the Chiefs and Crennel, that Crennel had over his door or somewhere, maybe in the locker room or something, a thing about what was it? Don't play bad football.
Yeah,
eliminate bad football. Wasn't that it?
I think that was it. Eliminate bad football.
Right, and. Man, they did not eliminate bad football. That was an ugly game for them, the KC. And I read afterwards that he had taken that sign down and has replaced it with play good football, because that's what's going to make the difference with the Chiefs. Not firing the offensive coordinator, who I swear I was writing my book like this is going to be a run, and it would be a run. If those trivia games you can play in bars, I would have made a lot of money if I thought the play, because
no sugar on the play then.
No, it was no mystery. I mean, it was just you knew everybody in the stadium knew what the play was going to be, and so of course they're going to fail a lot of times. You can't let the defense know that much about what you're doing. So Crennel or the offensive coordinators, you got to think they're going soon. I just don't know.
At this point in the season, I really just see no reason why the Broncos aren't going to take the division. I mean, that's the bottom line. Sure. I mean, as Broncos fans, because we're partisans here. But I mean, unless they have a last half of the season, wheels come off the bus.
Right, a Shanahan collapse. A post-Super Bowl Shanahan collapse where they just had to show up to the games with the right number of players, and they would have made it to the playoffs every year, but they just kept ditching out.
Well, I know one person we'll never have interviewed here is Mike Shanahan.
He's mean, man. I think he'd punch us out.
He probably would be.
He was like
you know what? I tell you what. Speaking of Shanahan, let's move on to those wonderful Broncos.
Yeah, let's get to the main subject of conversation.
Because I think the one thing that we really agree on here is that was a completely unexpected game. I had no idea that Cincinnati had that kind of game. I'd never seen their quarterback play. Their quarterback was amazing.
I've been waiting to say this since this game ended. Newman!
Yes, Newman.
That guy almost single-handedly took the game away from us.
That's true.
He picked Manning twice. Now, the game taketh and the game giveth. He also got a pass interference on a critical play in the end zone that moved the ball to the 1-yard line and allowed us to do the go-ahead score. But the Bengals' defense was surprisingly good.
I really saw probably, I think, one of those balance games of the year. I would not say that the Broncos overall played their best game of the year, but it was certainly a competent performance. And Cincinnati, they exceeded my expectations. So basically, what I saw was the ebb and flow of fortunes from two teams having a good day playing each other.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I can't say, oh, wow, somebody just really fell apart. No, nobody fell apart. Okay, Manning had a couple interceptions, right? I think that the Bengals finally have gotten lucky and gotten themselves a quarterback. Well, of course, based on one game, I can say with authority that the Bengals now have, their quarterback issues solved for a while.
I will say he was. We watched this game at the same time, and something you kept saying over and over again is, man, that guy certainly is confident.
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes to the point, and towards the end of the game, I did manage to burn him a few times when he had to throw. I mean, it was no mystery again. When the offense has to run certain plays or is consistently running plays the defense knows about,
right,
the game gets a lot harder. I thought he did a pretty good job, and I certainly think if you had to put him among the quarterbacks in the AFC West, gets you the 4 starters, he's underneath Manning right now.
There are certain positions in each major professional sport that, is defined by the need for a certain level of confidence or ego. Quarterback in the NFL, goalie in the NHL, probably pitchers in baseball, although I don't really like baseball.
The centerpiece guy, the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And so in a way, half their game is really a mental game of how prepared are they for the game, how much they believe in their ability to get the job done. And you know what? Hey, Dalton showed that he believed in his ability to get the job done, and he did. He had the arm strength, he had the accuracy, he had the ability to read plays. I was impressed. I mean, there were even a couple of moments in the game where he looked a little Manning-like, the way he was adjusting the play on the line.
Let's not get.
Yeah, let's not get.
Let's say he looked Cutler-like. Well, you know what? I will agree with you to a certain extent. At the start of the game, the Broncos defense gave him no respect at all. Every time he threw the ball, they would cut underneath the route.
Right.
They just, even if they were in single coverage and had no safety help, they were going for the pick every time. And here's the thing. If the Broncos defense had caught half the balls that literally ended up in their lap, that game would not have been close.
That's true.
So Dalton got let off the hook a bunch in the first half.
In fact, by my count, there were five places where the Broncos defender was in a better position than the Bengals receiver to get the ball.
Now, having said all of that, Dalton kept playing with what he had, and by the second half, that defense was backing off of him because he was starting to make completions and making the Denver defense look bad.
Right.
To the point where they had to start backing out of blitzing him all the time, of jumping routes on the cover. Because I think one of their first touchdowns was a double move Where it's like, okay, you want to keep jumping my route? Fine. Oh, I'm not there anymore. I'm all the way in the end zone. I just caught a touchdown. That was dumb of you.
Right.
You know, AJ Feely and those guys. So,
well, I tell you what, it certainly made me a lot more cautious to, take some of the bottom feeding teams and assume that we're going to, beat them like a drum through the rest of our schedule.
Now, statistically, at this point, we have the easiest schedule in the league to finish out. And that's based on the number of wins and losses right now. We basically play a lot of teams that right now are charitably considered to be struggling, when in reality, some of these guys just aren't going to, they're just not in contention this year at all.
Right. By the way, some other things I want to say notably about the, some notable things I'd like to say, about the Broncos game. On the
What
Broncos
would you like to
side.
say notably?
Yes, notably. I thought that opening series of both the opening defensive series and then the following offensive series by the Broncos was about the prettiest opening I've seen in probably 10 years.
Okay.
I mean, it was beautiful. Just all cylinders were firing.
Well, except for the McGahee running into the invisible brick wall thing.
But that wasn't in the first series.
That wasn't?
No.
Okay.
It wasn't. Another thing I'd like to say is those guys that are filling in on cornerback for Porter, like Harris. Mm-hmm. Those guys are really doing a hell of a job.
Absolutely, yeah. That was, without Porter, our secondary really did do a stand-up job.
I mean, I really have to say, I think poor Porter is probably anxious to get back so that he has a chance to keep his job, because, all of a sudden it's looking like there's a depth chart contention issue there.
Well, they say you're not supposed to lose your job in injury, but it's not always true.
That's not this league. But, in particular, Harris, he broke up some passes. But the thing that really impressed me was the way he came on. I think it was sometime in the second quarter. I wish I'd noted it down. But he came in on a run play, and was basically the decisive person to in that run play. So I thought it was great the way he was playing both the run and the pass. Sometimes you see corners and safeties, think that their only job is really on, on pass defense, unless it's they're the last person to the end zone.
No.
But that wasn't the situation here. I mean, Harris got up there and made a really powerful tackle. So good job to him. Their goal line defense was pretty incredible in the first half. Thomas, pine tar in the hands, 2 drop passes, dude. I love you. I've loved you since the day that you got drafted. But the number of drop passes that you've had this year on passes that you should catch, you are a great receiver. But those drop passes are killing you, dude.
He's your fan club president, so don't.
That's right.
On a lighter note, when he did drop that first pass, the cutaway shot to Manning was priceless, because it's one of those Manning moments where he's like, he's trying to be nice about it, but you can tell he just wants to march down and rip the helmet off.
But on the other side of it is, once again, I'm just stunned and amazed with how fortunate we are to have Thomas and Decker and Tammy and geez Louise, my brain just went blank.
The other tight end. Well, why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because you've been advocating a bigger role for tight ends, and they did have some key plays.
Absolutely. Especially, they really started, in my mind, being noticed or having an impact on the game in the second half. It's just deadly. I mean, when you can have that tight end receiving mix in there. Because it seems like, tight end routes generally tend to be short routes. I mean, would you agree with that?
It depends on your time. You get Shannon Sharp, the guy could haul ass down the field. But generally, yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, they're the underneath guys. And, when they're, a check down option, I mean, that's a great thing. But when it's a planned thing and you got all that sugar on the wide receivers, or maybe you're throwing one of those things where everybody's thinking that you've got a big wide receiver set, but you also have, halfback in the backfield. And so they're thinking that maybe you're trying to do a run play. And then all of a sudden the tight end is your primary receiver. I mean, great things happen.
Sure.
And those are the kinds of things that I think are really starting to open up for the Broncos in a way that they haven't since, back to the Elway days with Shannon Sharp and whatnot. So, yeah, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I thought, it's one of these games where I think even Denver won in finally saying, okay, now we got an easy one. we can just knock this one out of the park. Because defensively, Jack Del Rio wasn't messing around. And last week I complained that they tend to show up for football games with the wrong plan.
Right.
This week I think they showed up with the right plan. Hey, we've got a quarterback of doubtful quality.
Right.
Go after him until he makes you stop.
Right.
And the Denver defense got some legitimate pressure on him pretty much all throughout the game, but definitely early on.
Right.
They were making him throw before he wanted to, keeping him from stepping up. And the mistakes he did make late in the game were due specifically to the fact that he was under a lot of pressure.
Right.
So kudos to the defense. I know, like you say, we're hurting a couple places. We know we're missing Porter. We're missing one of our linebackers. We're missing definitely some quality secondary guys right now. So we're playing short, and we're doing pretty well with that. And I think the defense can be pretty proud of that. The offense, I think, just did a businessman-like job this time getting it all done. I guess the only thing that I would have, I don't know if it's really a complaint, and I think I saw it a little differently than you did, was the McGahee situation, or the running situation.
Oh, yeah.
So a couple
right.
things.
Thank
One
you.
is they never stopped using him. And
Well, they have a lot of confidence in him. I mean, that's the bottom line.
They do, but you got to give the guy a break. It's a long season, and you don't want to. If you're not having a lot of luck with somebody, it's pretty traditional in the NFL to try out your other back.
Yeah, they've got Hillis and Ball, and they really do need to get him rotated.
Sure.
Both of them rotated.
Hey, if the power guy, the guy who can churn his feet, is running into a wall, people that he can't get through, try the speed guy. Every team in the league does that. That's pretty old hat now. So I don't know why they didn't go that route. But also, and I think that we had a bit of a disagreement with this when we saw the game, is I felt like McGahee wasn't breaking any tackles. Yeah, he was getting caught up early, but McGahee traditionally can churn his feet and punch out a couple extra yards. Where I felt this game, the first time he contacted anybody, it was a Marino moment. He would just go straight down.
Yeah.
And yes, the offensive. Well, let me finish up.
Sorry,
if you don't mind. Yes, the offensive line was not getting to the second level, so the runs were getting hit at the line of scrimmage. But McGahee traditionally has been able to get 2, 3, 4 yards in that situation, and he was getting 0, 0, 0, -1, 0 pretty consistently. He wasn't getting anything going. Now, is the offensive line to blame? Absolutely. Was McGahee not at 100%? I don't know, but his production in that game, except for one really critical play, wasn't there.
Well, usually the reason why I was focused on the offensive line as a source of the problem, because I do agree that it seems like McGahee wasn't 100%. But the reason why I was focused on the offensive line is that normally when he starts breaking tackle, it's like when he's getting ready to make his second stride past, penetrating through the line, not through the gap.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm going to let this one go.
Right.
Anyway.
But usually if he's facing a lot of headwinds from a strong defense, it's going to be just on the defensive side of the gap.
Sure.
I mean inches, 6 inches into the defensive side. The thing about it is he was getting cut down 6 inches on the offensive side. And so it just seemed like the breaks weren't happening for them. Like that Bengals 4-3 defense was doing a good job of really stuffing the.
Oh, they did. They did a great job. They shut them down. So I mean that the running game wasn't very successful for the Broncos. I mean, and in fact, the only time it was to me was the play of the game, and I felt it was. I mean, I remember circling my notebook and I put like play of the game on it because it was from all aspects of the football, from the metagame of package and formation.
Right.
Down to play and on down and distance situation and time, from the coaches level down to the field level of actually getting the players in the right place and then actually running the play was perfect. And it was the one play that I think McGahee got more than 5 yards rushing. I mean, he had just such a horrible day. It was that 3rd and 2 late in the game where the Broncos put in a 4 wide receiver, 1 tailback package, no tight ends, and then they spread the wide receivers out wide, 1 guy slot of course on each side. But they have them way out. They have them to the corners of the field.
Right.
And it forces the Bengals to go into a dime, because there's nothing but speed on the field. And secondly, it spreads them way out. The defense has got to get, because it's only a 3rd and 2.
Right.
So it's not like the cornerbacks can play to the shade to the slot side and then kind of fade out to the corners after the play, like it was a long yardage situation. It was trivial. Any slant route that was played soft was an automatic first down.
Right.
And what do? They run it. And there's nobody in the middle of the field because everybody, safeties and corners are all on the edges,
Right.
and the only people in the middle are the down linemen and and the one linebacker that was left. And yeah, they ran it for I think 12 yards. They ran it from the 17 of the Bengals down to the 5, and it was first down.
Right.
And that set the stage for that pass interference from Newman and eventually the touchdown.
Right. Well, clearly something happened in the last third of the game, because and I think part of it was play calling, but to me there's still a mystery actually. What changed? Play calling. I think that there were some better matchups in terms of the offensive set to the defensive set, but I wonder if the Bengals defense was starting to get tired too.
Well, the announcer said that, but I just simply didn't believe it. Because why? When we went back to running, we got shut down again.
The thing about it though is that in that last third of the game, let's see, I think McGahee finished up with like 66 yards or something like that through the first 2/3 of the game. He only had I think 15 to 20 positive yards.
Okay.
So basically, it was that last third of the game that he got the other 40 yards.
All right.
So
you take 12 off on one run. That's 28 yards left in the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So it's really not.
Still, his yard per average in that last third was better than.
Sure.
Anyway.
So statistically, it looks great, but the reality is that they couldn't use McGahee to convert first downs.
No, they couldn't.
And except for that one thing. And again, the announcer was jumping up and down about, you just keep leaning on when you wear them out. That wasn't what it was at all. It was a complete mismatch of power. They just simply, if the Broncos had, say, come out with an I formation and the defense had stacked inside with enough linebackers, the same thing probably would have happened. I don't know why you would expect a different result running up the middle against a team that stuffed you all day.
Right.
The thing that made that play work is that they took basically 6 of the 11 defenders out of the box.
Right.
And with only 5 left, 5 guys on offense hike the ball and 1 guy's running it. Well, all of a sudden it's even Stevens.
Right.
And the person who tackles him was the safety, because the Broncos came out and single man on helmet, 5 on 5, locked up everybody at the line of scrimmage. Like I said, so for me it was a perfect play because the metagame of having the right call in to give McGahee the best chance for success, it was perfect. You couldn't have done it on a 3rd and 10. Nobody would have bit off on the run. You just couldn't have run it far enough. People would have closed in on it. Because it was short yardage, they had to respect those receivers, and that's forced them into a dime package.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, thinking about actually next week's game so that we can keep this under an hour and 45 minutes.
What? All right. So, wait. There's one thing I want to finish up on, and this I've grown up all my life. This is one of those things when you watch enough football, it's like one of these kind of wacky little sports moments, the highlights.
Right.
It's kind of the bloopers reel of the weird things that aren't supposed to show up on camera, but always seem like they do. It seems like any time that on the sideline, the league or the network puts a camera on the sideline, there's always some guy doing a farmer snot or his finger up to his brain. But I think the classic was they're looking at John Fox for some reason, and Woodard is in the shot from here down. And he just reaches down, and it's just adjusting himself. He's got a leg up, getting everything to reset. And there's just kind of a moment of silence from the announcers, and they eventually cut away. But that kind of stuff makes me laugh every time, because I hate to say it, but given the number of cameras they have and the delay and the people that there's a director who runs the camera.
It's not an accident.
It's I think they get bored sometimes and they just do stuff like that. That guy's got his finger up his nose. Let's cut to him real quick. Let's make the announcers
Wardrobe
dance.
malfunction.
So guys, keep on doing that. It's so funny. All right, let's go down to the pick. So this week, actually, the AFC West is not playing at home at all this week. Everything we're doing is away. So from the bottom of the pile up, Kansas City at Pittsburgh.
Well, I'll start out. This week I actually wrote down my predictions here.
And I didn't, though. I didn't. Can I Tebow something?
Here, I don't need the pencil.
Okay. So Tebow pass. That's the 1 in 100 that actually he gets right. Then that's the other 1 in 100. That's the 99% right there, folks.
All right. I'm calling this game 14-27.
That close.
Yes.
The anemic Chiefs.
The anemic Chiefs.
Who don't have a quarterback. They would be starting Quinn if he didn't have a concussion. They might still start him. They might stick his helmet on the field and hope it does well.
Well, you know what? I would have given them a lower score, except for the fact that their running back Jamal Charles was cleared of a concussion, and his running back skills put him have put Kansas City at number 3 in the lead on the rush. Pittsburgh's rush defense is not all that great. So okay. I'm thinking that they might be able to break something loose. Okay. I think that there's a possibility too that the Roethlisberger, of course, I don't think much of that guy. I think that it's possible that they could play down to their opponent.
All right. Well, I'm going to use my veto power and call this the worst pick of the week. No, I'm just kidding. That's not a good. That's if Jamal Charles can chew up some yards against the Steelers, whose defense is not at 100% right now, then yeah, I think that's not impossible. It's an away game. It's in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense is finally kind of getting itself together under Todd Haley. It's a new offensive scheme. It's taken a while to settle down, and I think they have. The defense is actually starting to do a lot better. Statistically, they're probably not great, but the last few games I've seen them play, they're really starting to tighten up.
Yeah.
I would say 31-3 Pittsburgh.
31-3.
31-3. I think that 3 might come on like a Roethlisberger sack fumble kind of thing or some sort of Roethlisberger pick, but I don't see KC's offensive line stopping anything, and quite frankly, I think Roethlisberger is just gonna just pass him to death. I don't really think the KC has much of a chance on either side.
Obviously, I think that the key to this game is going to be whether or not Pittsburgh plays down to their opponent.
Yeah, that's true. It's a home game, and it's hard to play there.
Yeah.
So that's a place they traditionally play well. Yeah, I don't. Well, and there's one thing: Kansas City, I think, will be number 1 and will maintain its number 1 rating all the way till next year.
For the draft.
Yeah,
yes.
You might catch on to that one pretty quick. Well, what can I say? What can you say about a 1-7 team?
Yeah, what can you say?
I guess
about
you can say they
1-7?
won 1. All right, so next up would be the Raiders at Baltimore.
Raiders at Baltimore. I'm actually going to call that a really close game.
Okay.
I'm calling it at 21-24.
21-24. Anything else to say on top of that, or?
Yeah, actually, I think that it's a case where Baltimore's 22nd ranked pass defense and 28th ranked rush defense might not match up terribly well against Oakland. I think Carson Palmer is having to pass so much that that he could possibly bring them over the top.
Okay. All right, I can see that.
And also Baltimore had that nasty 9-6 win against Kansas City.
That's true.
I mean, they're kind of struggling this year.
Okay, so I'll start off on that aspect. Baltimore can be flaky, especially with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco keeps talking about what a great quarterback he is, but he is some days, and some days he's not. Right. He shows sign of brilliance, and some days he is not very good. But the reality is that the Raiders stink, and they can't stop the run. I mean, Tampa Bay would clearly line up and running. It's like, hey, that's number 22. He's running for 170 yards. Maybe we should look at that guy. And they would put everybody they had in the box. They put the coach in there, cheerleaders, a couple of those fans they have with all the stuff they lay on, and he would still blaze right through them.
Right.
They just can't stop the run. You know who Baltimore has? Ray Rice. You know what we're going to see? 200 yards from Ray Rice. And it's not. I don't think it's going to be an incredibly high-scoring game because Baltimore's just going to try to keep it on the ground as much as they can until Oakland makes them stop. Mm-hmm. But I foresee Carson Palmer still throwing to a lot of empty spots on the field. I don't think that offense is clicking yet. Now, in the Raiders game that they played, there were a couple times where he threw balls when the receivers were on the same page of music. I saw him throw this ball to Bay that Bay was running along, and he just kind of had to stick his arm out like this, and the ball just ended up clunking down to his hand, and he just did this, and he got hit out of bounds.
Right.
But it was like it literally could not be passed any better. It's like the quarterback didn't have to reach for it; it just fell in his pocket, and he could have kept on running. But half the game was, oh look, Carson Palmer threw it to the 30-yard line, and there's nobody within 20 yards of the 30-yard line. Right. So I don't think they've got an offense. I don't think they can stop the run on defense because Baltimore will run it a lot, and even though the Baltimore defense without Ray Lewis isn't nearly as good, they're still plenty good.
Well, I would like to point out, by the way, that I picked 24 on the off chance that they would be kicking 8 field goals, Baltimore.
Wow. Wow. All right, so I will stop. I'll stop stalling and say 27-6 Baltimore.
Okay.
So now I have two AFC West teams not being able to summon up one single touchdown between them.
Wow.
That's definitely that's a. All right, so San Diego
yeah.
at Tampa Bay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is a case where I actually I think that we can expect Phillip Rivers to do as well as Carson Palmer against Tampa Bay. I think, however, that Tampa Bay, I feel a little more certain this time, that Tampa Bay will be able to put together a run and pass package against San Diego like they did against Oakland. In fact, I see this being virtually kind of the same game.
Okay.
So I'm calling 34-37 with San Diego on the losing end, the 34 end.
Okay.
34-37.
All right, so this will actually be the first time that we've actually called a game where we don't agree about the winner. I don't think either team's very good. But Tampa Bay did show they could do some things. But I still think. Good.
Well, sorry, I forgot to add one of the key things in my reasoning here is Tampa Bay's 32nd rated pass defense. And I think Phillip Rivers right now is motivated. Phillip Rivers has a tendency to be streaky. You know,
absolutely.
He's gone through. He
that
had a string of
the Chargers.
Exactly. So he's had a streak of terrible.
Right.
And now he's going to have a streak of good. Is what I'm saying.
Okay. That's kind of why I'm going to pick the Chargers to win. I think they've been having a time of it, and it seems like anytime people's jobs are threatened, all of a sudden the organization starts doing better. And they've stunk lately, and Tampa Bay, I keep picking on them week after week, but I don't think they're very good. So, but I think this might be a shootout. So like 24-21.
24-21. Okay.
Something like that. I mean, it might be an interesting game, and having the Chargers take one away, because I think the Chargers also realize that if they lose this game, like the Raiders, it's just the gap is getting too big to start to be realistic about catching up.
Well, you'll notice. I mean, I've predicted that all our three opponents in the division are all going to lose. I mean, I really see the gap starting to grow at this point in the season.
Fair enough. I guess Phillip Rivers, though, selfishness. That's the wild card here. That's like the same problem I have like looking at the Cowboys and saying, well, are they going to win or lose this week? I don't know. Is Tony Romo going to play a solid game, or is he going to be Tony Romo and do crazy things? So if Phillip Rivers has one of his selfish games, it's a disaster and it's a huge blowout. If he plays well, which he's definitely capable of doing, then 24-21 seems pretty reasonable.
I had to go out and do some reading on Carolina because I somehow had missed every piece of news.
You should have come to me. Would you like me to summarize in one simple word?
Well, yes, suck. Right.
Sorry,
Thank you,
guys.
Thank you, Archie Bunker. That's what that reminded me of. That was Archie Bunker right there. I'm going 35-20 on this game. One of the things I've learned about watching Manning is that you can tell he's in the groove when he starts ordering the team around. When he doesn't feel like he's in his groove, when he's trying to play at being Manning instead of being Manning, then he's not. Then he's a lot quieter on the field. Mm-hmm. So, that I think was the worst thing I could say about the Cincinnati game. He didn't seem like he was completely in the groove. He wasn't being the on-field quarterback, except maybe towards the end when that score started getting awfully close, and he needed to bring it to a positive conclusion. There's a real tendency with Carolina. I mean, everything I've read is that Carolina stinks. In fact, Carolina stinks so bad that there's even talk of Carolina being moved out of Charlotte.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. What's going to come of that, I don't know. But they're having a very, very, very bad time of it. But there's also an indication that some of their losses haven't been quite so tragic as they might appear from just reading box scores. So I think that there may be 20 points worth of tricks up their sleeve.
Okay.
Plus, I'm still not sold on the idea that Jack Del Rio and the defense have the problem of of stuff in the run solved. So I think it's possible that Carolina could maybe ramble out a point or two on the ground.
Okay, I think that's that's all reasonable. I think from my perspective, what I see is it's John Fox is going back to Carolina. So right
Revenge
there,
tour, yeah.
there's definitely a revenge factor.
He claims there isn't.
Oh, please. Right. The Panthers, unfortunately, are pretty bad right now. And there's not a lot of good things to say about them at this point at all. So I think the Broncos should have a pretty easy go of this one. I think the only X factor is stopping the run, and they are playing, Cam Newton. So you gotta watch how that guy get outside. So I'm gonna predict the score, and I'm gonna predict what Cam Newton will do in the press conference.
Okay.
All right. So the score, let's say 34-17, maybe Broncos. I think the Broncos should probably pretty much walk away with this one. So
yeah, and Cam Newton is pretty mobile too. So
yes, and that's the thing. When I said stopping the run, I kind of meant more about Cam Newton than anything.
Exactly.
He's the X factor in the game. When he's on, he's crazy good. But the season's getting on.
He's a better Tebow than Tebow.
Yeah, he can actually throw good balls. I mean, so. I think it's any other worthy league news that we're talking about. I mean, the Bears blowout was pretty quick. Oh, here's something. We were reading today that the NFL fined a player for doing the flop. That is awesome. $30,000. For pretending to be hurt in between plays to slow the game down.
Yeah, I missed that one. That's pretty funny.
It's hilarious. I always wondered if that was really legal. So, but I guess the league will take a look at it. What about where we at with standings right now? So the Broncos are 2 games up, right?
Yes.
And at this point, my brain just locked up. I'm sorry. The Chargers are 2 back, and then the Raiders are 1 behind that, and then of course the Chiefs are like 400 games behind. I mean,
right.
They're statistically out of it at this point. So we're looking at the rest of the league. Last week the NFL as a whole had more losers than winners. This week week 9 kind of changed that a little bit, but we're still obviously in contention for 4th automatically because of a division win.
Right.
So that's what we're still going for, but we have the easiest schedule in the league right now. So there's no reason that 2 spots out of reach. I think the 1 spot might be difficult because we've already lost a few games, but I think the 2 spot is most certainly something that we could go for.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're not playing for. We're playing for a first round bye.
Yes, that would be great.
Maybe I need to change my prediction for Oakland to actually beat Baltimore, because then that would slide them down in the standards, because Baltimore's ahead of New England. Yeah, but that's not happening. That's not happening.
That's a lot of wishful thinking.
Yes, it is wishful. Well, I think that kind of brings our weekly news.
Yeah, I think so.
To a close.
We did pretty good on picks last week. We picked 3 games only because 2 of the division teams were playing each other. We got 2 out of 3 right, actually, with pretty close scores. And the last one we completely borked up. But if they'd stopped playing at the half, we would have been right.
And so we'll provide a graphic right about here that will show our picks.
Yeah.
All right.
We're done.
Well, you guys have a great weekend and enjoy football.
Yes. Jonathan?